In the news this week, Pauline Hanson comes to Western Australia. We have exclusive details on what her trip will entail.
Also, Labor's historic campaign launch in Western Australia as Albanese aims to steal Liberal votes. An extensive report and an analysis with Peter Kennedy. Campaign for Change, an update on WA's leading human rights activists bid for the Senate. And later, Dr Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. WAMA News can reveal exclusive details concerning One Nation leader Pauline Hanson's trip to Western Australia, her first visit since the coronavirus pandemic began. It's understood the leader will arrive for a 2 days and 3 nights campaign blitz. The party's lead Senate candidate Paul Farling gave full details on Ms Hanson's WA trip in this exclusive interview. Paul Farling, thanks for joining us tonight. I understand that Pauline Hanson will be coming to Western Australia very soon. What are the precise details and where will she be going?
Right, well, very happy to announce the fact that Pauline arrives on the evening of the 10th, and on the 11th she has a full day's activities, visiting the pre-polling booths around the metropolitan area, visiting shopping centres, meeting the people, and in the evenings we're having the big supporters function at Black Tom's in West Perth. On the following day, on the Thursday, she's going to be in Bunbury, meeting people out and about, and she'll be also out in the various parts of the metro area greeting voters, talking to them about the issues, and then in the evening we're hoping to have a private function with candidates so that they get a chance, or she gets a chance to meet the team in WA.
What are your chances of winning in this election?
Well, they're always going to be tough because quite often we've found that the bigger parties tend to preference One Nation down the list. But there's a very big head of support. We're getting a lot of support from people calling us, wanting to volunteer, wanting to assist us. And so I'm quite confident that One Nation will do very well across the board. That includes not only in the Senate but in the House of Representatives, where we have a fantastic array of candidates.
Now, with Pauline Hanson coming to town, a lot of multicultural communities aren't going to be happy about this. What do you have to say about that?
Well, we have a large number of supporters and candidates from multicultural backgrounds. Our candidate for Tangney here, Chung Chang, originally his family comes from Singapore. So it's not as if we are excluding or making it hard for people to be associated or run with One Nation because of their background. But what we do say is that when it comes to an important issue like immigration, it is absolutely essential that people's views are consulted. Pretty much all of the time the big parties merely assume people are stupid and decide on their behalf without really consulting them, and if there is any objection, they're immediately accused of being racist or in some way intolerant.
Paul Farling, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ivan.
And here to react on Ms Hanson's campaign trip to Western Australia is Suresh Rajan, President of the Ethnic Communities Council of Western Australia.
Anytime she comes here, I think it's a very disappointing outcome. The reality is that hers is a party that has been preaching hatred and preaching racism right across the country, and she's certainly not welcome here. Would not expect that she would be regarded by anyone as being representative here. One Nation has no standing in the WA Parliament already, and I think she's really wasting her time to be coming here. She could get better traction just remaining where she is in Queensland. I think that there are a number of seats in play here, but I don't think that she will have any success whatsoever here. And we saw that in the state election. One Nation were wiped out pretty much right across the board. They have no representation at the state level. And I think that we will continue to see that at the federal level as well through any of the seats here. So if she's hoping for a Senate seat, I don't think she's going to be getting anything from WA. I think that she should just concentrate elsewhere.
It's the most anticipated election campaign launch Western Australia has seen in over half a century. Labour has become the first major political party to launch its federal election campaign in Western Australia.
Labour leader Anthony Albanese has laid out the party's manifesto as it aims to snatch key seats from the coalition. Backed by star power from Premier Mark McGowan and former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, Mr Albanese hopes WA can help Labour win government.
A rock-star reception with Labour's stalwart leaders in action. Mark McGowan, Peter Oscars, Kevin Rudd and Paul Keating, helping the alternative Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to launch his historic campaign in Western Australia.
You can vote for more secure work, better pay and meaningful help with your cost of living, or a Prime Minister who says it's not my job to lift wages.
The Labour leader unveiled ambitious policies for Australia, including cheap renewable energy push with a promise of 600,000 new jobs by 2030, with electric vehicle discounts and new charging stations. On jobs, Labour promised gender pay equity, an objective in the Fair Work Act, plus 465,000 fee-free places in TAFE. In health, a promise of $30 cap in PBS medication, pay rise for aged care workers, better food for the elderly, and 24-hour nurses in nursing homes. For home buyers, the Help to Buy scheme to reduce mortgage payments on 10,000 homeowners on low and middle income. $100 million in crisis and transitional housing for women and children, and a target to build 20,000 social housing units, 10,000 affordable homes, and new homes for homeless veterans.
I will bring people together. I will lead with integrity and I will treat you with the respect that you deserve.
These are ambitious plans, but for Mr Albanese, the biggest goal he has set for himself is to be a leader that unites and not divides.
Today, Anthony particularly talked about, a better future for Australian women, in the care economy, in the workforce, better economic participation, and really ensuring that women get a pay rise, that we close that gender pay gap. But also, of course, cheaper childcare, which is about easing the cost of living for families and particularly helping women get more hours at work and to really grow the economy by increasing women's workforce participation.
Meanwhile, newly minted South Australian Labour Premier Peter Oscars continues his advocate for more GST. When asked whether that will cost Western Australia's share, he said he isn't interested to make WA worse off.
It's not about arguing the case to see WA's GST share go down. What I want to see is make sure that South Australia's GST share doesn't go down, and it's set to be worse off to the tune of $250 million per annum. And what I'm saying is that's not okay. We want to be able to deliver the healthcare services that South Australians desperately need at the moment.
This week's campaign launched by Anthony Albanese has been historic in many ways, as Western Australia becomes the focus of Federal Labor's bid to win government. Here is veteran political journalist Peter Kennedy's analysis as we enter week 3 of the election campaign.
The federal election campaign has reached the halfway point, with Labor still ahead in the polls, and the Liberals have to make up that ground if they want to stay in government on May the 21st. Labor very determined to win a couple of marginal seats in Western Australia off the Liberals. That's why Anthony Albanese has decided to launch Labor's campaign here in the West. The first time that has happened since John Curtin was Labor leader back in the early 1940s. So a very bold move by Labor. As far as Labor overall is concerned, a much smaller target than 3 years ago. Their policy campaign is much more restricted, and they've decided to go for issues such as cost of living, which is becoming an issue given the inflation rate, also climate, and claiming that the government is flaky on climate, and that is a potential problem for the government. And interest rates, of course, the suggestion that interest rates are likely to move, and probably sooner rather than later, will put pressure on many young home buyers and potential home buyers. So they're the issues as the election reaches its midway point and we go into the final 3 weeks. Mr Albanese laying out the Labour Manifesto effectively on how he hopes to form government on May the 21st and how a Labour government would proceed with the next 3 years. Inflation, a potential issue. This could be throw a spanner in the works in some of the Labor spending projects. Just how far can a government go in stimulating the economy, which is already showing signs of being overstimulated, with inflation being a major problem, the highest rate for many years here in Australia. So they're the issues for Labor, and Mr Albanese has to explain that in the final 3 weeks and convince voters that he's got a better plan than Scott Morrison and the Liberals. Peter Kennedy, WAMN News.
Property investors have turned their focus on Perth as the national housing market continues to spike. Over 20 mentors from Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra arrived in Perth this weekend as they believe the market is undervalued now. A bus tour was also held as mentors revealed opportunities in selected Perth locations.
We've been doing this for 27 years and our focus is not to push up rents. Our focus is basically on helping mum and dad investors. But especially here in the value for money in Perth is very, very good, and that's the reason why we're here to look at investing, and we're looking at getting people from the eastern seaboard to look at investing here in Perth. And what that helps is that helps the local market. Because it helps the local market, it helps the local government.
Clarifications have been issued after Western Australia relaxed its mask mandate this week. This means that masks will be required in GPs and other medical specialists and facilities. The Australian Medical Association WA President, Mark Duncan-Smith, stated that doctors' offices are also high-risk areas and reminded citizens to wear a mask when they visit medical practitioners.
AMA-WA sought clarification from the WA state government, and masks are still mandatory at GPs and specialist offices. Vulnerable, elderly, and those with concerns should continue to wear masks, as masks are effective at reducing your chances of getting COVID. People who continue to wear masks indoors should not be ostracised. They should be applauded for protecting themselves and continuing to protect the rest of society.
The Forest Alliance is urging Western Australians to reduce the use of firewood after the local industry issued a warning over the recent shortage. As winter approaches our state, the Alliance encourages citizens to consider using other sustainable means of heating to reduce carbon pollution. It's estimated that WA burned around 150,000 tonnes of jarrah every year. In the past decade, 85% of firewood originated from jarrah from the native forest. A recent ban has been implemented on native forest logging as the effect of climate change continues to bite.
Perth is to be back on the soccer map, with English Premier League heavyweights bringing the clubs back to the state. The league will bring star power back to Perth for a weekend of blockbuster matches in July that will feature the 4 biggest teams in English football history. As part of Icon, Perth's International Festival of Football, Leeds United will play Crystal Palace on July 22nd, while Manchester United will take on Aston Villa on July 23rd in a series of pre-season exhibition games. The weekend will be enhanced with a range of fan events beginning from July 18, taking place at a range of venues around Perth.
Facilities are great, the environment's great. I know all the players thoroughly enjoyed coming down here and they're looking forward to it again. But we're bringing a big squad, new manager. It's almost time for a reset, I suppose, but I think everybody will be looking forward to coming down here. It'll be the fourth game on tour, and playing Villa I think will be such a fantastic occasion here. 2 years ago we played Leeds and Perth Glory and filled the stadium, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, several weeks ago, 14-year-old journalist Leo Puglisi got Australia talking after securing an interview with Prime Minister Scott Morrison. This coming Tuesday at 6 p.m, WAMN News will exclusively relay Leo's interview with opposition leader Anthony Albanese. Here's a preview.
You said at the start of the campaign that you're not Scott Morrison and don't run away from press conferences. Yet days later, you walked out of a press conference, rather. Did you break your promise?
Not at all.
You said there that some media run a biased line. Which media specifically are you talking about?
Sky News, for example, after a particular period of time, tend to run in the coalition's favour. We're putting forward a plan to strengthen Medicare. We've got a plan for cheaper childcare. We have a plan to deal with the challenge of climate change, a comprehensive plan.
It's a yes or no question. Are trans men men? Yes or no?
Well, it's up to them to define. People are able to define themselves.
If you are elected as Prime Minister, can you promise to own up to mistakes and factual inaccuracies if you make them? And would you be willing to come back on 6 News?
Uncensored, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the 6 News YouTube channel and our website 6newsau.com.
Go Leo and the 6 News team.
And as we've mentioned earlier, WAMN News will have the exclusive right to relay this interview this coming Tuesday night. Plus additional extra articles and interview transcripts available only to our Extra News members. So don't forget to join us then. We'll recap this week's top stories again in just a moment.
But right now, here's Nelson Liu with Western Perspective.
Thanks guys, hello and welcome to Western Perspective. This week, as we reach the halfway point of the election campaign, a group of independent candidates are working to push for social justice for those less fortunate. The candidates, headlined by Jerry Georgatos, are fighting for the rights of everyone, beginning with those who don't have a voice, while also trying to erode monopoly politics. I spoke to Jerry about their election campaign and what they hope for in the lead up to polling day. Jerry Georgatos, thank you very much for joining us today. There's about a month left in this election campaign. As a group of independents, how's the campaign going?
There's 3 weeks left till crunch time. In May 21, that's it. The people decide. We want to become the first independent senators from WA, Western Australia, in 51 years. To think of the fact that there hasn't been an independent senator from Western Australia to the Australian Senate in 51 years, that's stunning. And it goes to what our democracy is actually about, a very reduced, reductionist, minimalist democracy. It doesn't reflect the aspirations and the peoples of the nation. More independence will erode the duopoly, will erode the narrow corridor of discourse that is that duopoly, monopoly politics, and because it's a duopoly, they're basically a reflection of each other and a narrow corridor of discourse. Yes, they sometimes form a coalition to actually create government. The two parties get together and become government. We need a polypoly. We need as many parties as possible, micro parties, representing the demography of this nation.
So do you support the idea of a duopoly?
What we have is a duopoly, and I don't support the duopoly. Duopoly is a two-party preferred system. That's a monopoly. It's monopoly politics. We've got to erode monopoly politics. And to erode monopoly politics, you need more micro-parties, you need micro-parties to grow in numbers, and you need government to be returned as a minority government, so it partners up with other parties, such as occurs in some European nations, to the betterment, not to the detriment as we have in this country, where they actually reflect a wider translation of the people, of marginalised people who would otherwise be invisible. And marginalised people are not small in numbers. They're often in the hundreds of thousands and millions. And in Australia we have marginalised people in the hundreds of thousands and millions. And they are not represented in our parliaments because we have a duopoly. That's monopoly politics.
So what kind of support have you had so far?
We believe we have about 10% in terms of a recognition factor across the state. We believe that we have between 50 to 70% of translation rate of those who have come to know we exist and have come to understand what our politics are actually about and what we seek to achieve and what our community reckoning is in pursuant of. May have at this time 5 to 7% of the vote based on the fact that we have a 10% recognition factor. If we can get the greater reach, if we can make ourselves more visible, if Western Australians get to know us, it looks likely that we will be elected. The math has changed because we don't know what the electoral reforms will bring about. The preferences are now in the hands of the voter. They determine where their preferences are for the most part, not the parties themselves.
Are you confident of getting that vote?
I'm confident that we have done everything as well as we can. We are an organic campaign, a coalface campaign. We don't have a party brand. We don't have a party faithful, a base. We started with nothing. We are somewhere where it's quite surprising where we're at. We are somewhere where we know how many potential voters we actually have. I don't want to disclose that, but we know how many potential voters we have. We are in the running. We are in the running for the 4th, 5th and 6th spot. That's our view at this point in time. Obviously, we're going to be drowned at this point and soaked up with the party advertisements with the millions of dollars that each party actually has. We have none of that. Everything comes from our pockets. And by mobilisation and by spreading the word, we have travelled the state, we have got around, but we have done it in an organic, cold-faced way. We are running on our reputation. We are running on our deeds. We are running on our social justice works. We are running on the achievements that we have. We aren't running on words, promises, and a minefield of pledges. We aren't doing any of that. All we want is the one Senate seat. We have a powerful social justice ticket. We have 6 individuals who will form a powerful social justice team. They will be great policy advisors. They will be great champions of change. They will be great social reformers. One of us gets across the line, all of us get across the line. I get across the line, that team comes with me to Canberra. We want to make change.
And now, here's AMA WA spokesman Dr Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Important things on the COVID front to remember at the moment as we ease all these restrictions and get about trying to get life back more to how it was before COVID came along. Firstly is that there will of course be an increased number of people in hospital and unfortunately who die. There's about 1,000 people a month on average dying in Australia, Australia-wide at the moment, about 250 a week, and that's a very high price to pay. One way we could reduce that is by reducing the spread of disease by wearing masks in situations where it doesn't really, pose a great burden. So going to supermarkets and being indoors in anywhere where it's crowded in public is somewhere we can still quite reasonably, even if it's not mandated, wear masks, encourage people not to be spreading this disease around. The other thing that we need to do is consider the unvaccinated, and there's about 40 or 50% of primary school age children who are yet to be vaccinated. We need to do more to encourage that. And of course we're greatly heartened by the news that Moderna has applied for the FDA American approval for its vaccine for 6-month to 5-year-old children, and we hope that that'll follow really quickly in Australia to avoid those rare complications and the unknown long-term complications that we will see in the paediatric population of the youngest kids. It's just not acceptable that they be infected again and again through their crucial years of development. So I'd encourage everybody to do what you can personally to prevent the spread of this disease. Avoid getting the infections yourself wherever possible, and stay safe out there, because no longer are the government responsible for reducing the spread of the disease. It's really just up to us as individuals. Thanks very much for your time.
And that's WP for this week. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Nelson. And here is Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. And on 6 News exclusive, we speak to one of the candidates in the Queensland seat of Dickson, who says he will vote for Peter Dutton if the sitting member legally pledges to commit to democracy. As questions are asked about why the Defence Minister didn't show up to a People's Forum broadcast live right here on 6 News. BLITZ Anthony Albanese set to face the hard questions from 6 News on Tuesday night in an interview that's already making headlines as Labour officially launches its election campaign in Perth, and authorities warn of a flu resurgence amid reports of a surge in cases as Australia moves towards completely living with COVID-19. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find it, or head to our website 6newsau.com. For now though, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.